Hey friends, believers, skeptics, and everyone searching for something real. Welcome to The Grove. This podcast is brought to you by the Bridge Ministry of Orchard Knob Baptist Church, right here in the scenic city of Chattanooga, Tennessee. We're all about real talk on faith, life, and what usually doesn't get said from the pulpit, all through the lens of different generations. Our mission to help you think deeper, grow stronger, and move closer to Christ. I'm your host, Corbin Snarden, and I'm so glad that you're here with us today. Let's get into it. Joining me today is my co-host. Please tell the audience who you are.
Man, I thought you was going to tell them who I was. Anyway, my bad. Prentice Gilbert, a.k.a. Minister G. I currently serve here as youth pastor at Orchard Knob Missionary Baptist Church. And I thought we had changed the name. My youth said this was The Groove, so I thought we had changed the name of the podcast.
They did say it was a Groove. It's always been The Grove, and I just let them run with it. I said, let the babies run.
Yeah,
let the babies run.
I thought we changed the name, but anyway.
No, so happy to have you here today, Minister G. Let's jump right into our verse of the day. We actually got two verses today, so we are coming from Genesis 2:23 and 24, and Mark 10 and 9. Genesis 2:23 and 24 says, "The man said, 'This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, for she was taken out of man. That is why a man shall leave his mother and father and be united unto his wife, and the two become one flesh.'" Mark 10 and 9 says, "Therefore, what God has put together, let no one separate." This season on The Grove, we're also highlighting local charities in and around the Chattanooga area. And so our charity for this episode is First Things First, or FTF. Their mission is to guide people in their relationships so they can live better lives. FTF serves economically disadvantaged and at-risk families who have experienced cyclical trauma, dysfunction, and lack of access to resources. They know strong, healthy relationships, a sense of personal value, and support within a stable community can make all the difference. For more info on First Things First, go to www.firstthings.org. All right, so today's topic, we're going to jump right into our episode here, but I always like to do a little icebreaker as we get started.
Okay.
Since our topic today is about marriage, let's kind of just start with, it's a real simple one. Like, what's something that makes your wife smile or laugh?
Man, I did not catch this question before coming in, because I probably would have got my approval from my wife before sharing anything. Baby, I'm sorry if you don't like this. Man, well, I'll tell you what makes my wife smile. Food. My wife loves both of us, we love a good meal, an amazing cupcake. You name it. Now we're working actively to live a little bit healthier and a better life right now. But man, and here's my biblical response for why I love food. I cannot imagine dying and the last meal being a salad.
That's a good point. That's a good point. I mean, they had bread.
I'm just saying, man. I don't want to leave this world and my last meal had been a salad. So I love a good meal, man. And so we're foodies. When we travel, we tend not to try to eat food, chains, restaurants, or whatever. We're going to try to find something, akin to the area, and have an amazing meal. So
oh, good.
Food's our love language.
Listen, I think it kind of goes for my wife. Like, specifically, if it's ice cream or seafood, not together. Don't do that together. But ice cream and seafood, she's gonna be like happy.
All in.
That's all in.
Now, my wife don't do a lot of seafood. She'll do some fried fish or popcorn shrimp, but that's the extent of it right there. It all ends right there.
Well, my wife's straight up from the Gulf, so we gotta have all of it. The shrimp etouffee, crawfish, all of it. It's all gotta be in there.
Now you're gonna make me have to go figure out what I'm eating for lunch.
I was thinking the same thing. It's never too early to think about that. But all right, thank you for being on the show today. And our topic today is about marriage. Yep. And so I'm going to start the conversation off just by saying, since we're doing this through a biblical lens, but we are going to talk about the things that don't get talked about on Sunday. So, let's start with just what is the biblical understanding of marriage? Because it can't just be, she said I do, I say I do, and then we're happily ever after.
And I want to make sure I frame our conversation too, right? Is we're talking about marriage, but the point's not lost that it's just two men sitting here talking about marriage, right? So this is from a male husband perspective. Gotcha. A lot of things. A marriage is between a husband and a wife. So there's always two perspectives from that vision and view of marriage. And that actually it goes into the answer though, right? And God perfectly joined us together, man and woman, because we do have two very different perspectives. And so for me, my wife is definitely my helpmate in many areas. God has given me this vision and all these other things, man. And sometimes he speaks to my wife, or the perspective she has illuminates areas that may be dark for me. And so that's the benefit I have of having a strong biblical partner in this. And so to me, that goes to my answer, right? What is the biblical purpose of marriage? It's not just about companionship. It's not courtship. It's not even a contract. It is a covenant. And there is a stark difference between a contract and a covenant. A covenant encompasses some unrequited truths that have to be present, some love that is not earned, but it is there and present no matter what the challenges faced are. And so I think marriage exemplifies that love and that covenant that Christ had for us, and God had for us in sending His Son Jesus to die for us, right? Yeah. And you know that covenant, when you stand before the preacher at the altar, whatever kind of portion of that ritual you do for your own self, it's making that covenant with that person before God. That's also why. So you said we talk about the stuff that we don't talk about in the pulpit, right? That's also why God never intended for us to have premarital sex, because the sex was intended to be the summation, the sealing of the blood covenant, right? Mm-hmm. That's why a woman had a hymen, and that whole process was for, because after you were to do your verbal oath, your oath before God, right. Now that wedding night or whatever after, that first night of intimacy created that blood covenant now into this covenant that we've entered into. And so I think, you know, the world has unfortunately perverted and defiled some of those things that God intended in this covenant and what it was intended to be. And so nowadays it's so easy. We just want to hop in and out. Yeah. We want to run to the courthouse, file the paperwork to make it happen or to undo it, we want to have it done away. But that wasn't what God intended. It was intended as a covenant, and just as Christ was coming back for His bridegroom, the church. Again, that's still God's covenant. Yeah. And so our marriages should be a reflection of Christ's beautiful covenant love to his believers.
Yeah, to that point, I'm working backwards here because you said a whole lot.
I know.
That was a whole lot. So, I really would have worked back from the frame of marriage is a reflection of Christ in a way. And so I think, and I can speak from an American perspective, we've made marriage. You brought up there's a difference between a contract and a covenant, and we've made marriage so contractual. Yep. Yeah, it's a business transaction, mm-hmm. And we jump in and jump out of it just like anything else. Some people change spouses like they change, their socks. And that's what the culture says, and I'm not picking on any particular celebrity, but I'm we know certain celebrities that have been married 3, 4, 5, 6 times. He's since passed away, but Larry King, I think, was married 8 times. Yeah. I was listen, if after the first 2 you didn't get it right, you need to go on just be single.
Yeah, you just determined y'all gonna kick it for a while.
Yeah, you just want somebody to meet up for coffee. Mm-hmm. You don't need a spouse.
I doubt it was coffee, but go ahead.
I doubt it was coffee. I doubt it was that. But that contractual piece of it, I don't think it's taught enough from the church that marriage is covenantal. At least, especially when I got married. I've only been married 5 years. But, understanding that marriage is a reflection of Christ, and that piece of it, I was okay, I thought it was you say I do, she says I do, we live happily ever after.
She fine, I like her, so we're going to go on.
I like it that you, and this is how this works. But there's so much more into it that kind of goes in there. You also said something about earlier, because touchy topic, but, Genesis 2 talks about God creating the woman and creating her to be a helpmate.
Yes.
Let's go down that for a second. So, what does that mean when God says I need to create a helpmate for him? Does that mean that
that doesn't mean that He created a indentured servant for me, right? He didn't create an indentured servant. And so, first of all, shout out to my wife Veronica. We're coming up April 15th. Is 20 years in the game for us, man. So.
Congratulations.
We had one of those untraditional, very short. We knew each other. We met Dated for about 5 months, and then I was like, hey, this is my wife. Let's go on, and pop the question or whatever. But yeah, coming up on 20 years for us. But again, she's not an indentured servant to me, right? She is that other half of me. Some say that better half of me. And it's challenging because me and her are very different people, right? I'm just outgoing, I get energy from being around people. Man, my wife is cool. Like, she smiled and all that, but she like, hey, I could be at the house, in her PJs, chilling, watching TV, and perfectly fine and doing it. And a perfect example of the difference in us, me and my son Zach are very outgoing. Her and Dylan are not. The decisions after church about lunch, show. That big word tripped me up. I'm from Alabama. That big word tripped me up, man. Look, but they do perfectly show. Her desire is to grab some lunch and go to the house. Ours is to go to a restaurant and sit down and eat. But she's not an indentured servant to me. My wife is that helpmate. And so God has put all of this other stuff in me that fuels me with people and that stuff. And my wife sometimes is the one sitting back behind. And later on, she may have that response of something. I'm like, hey, what was going on? Why you felt a little off today? She's like, something ain't right. I'm like, okay, whatever that means, right? And it 9 times out of 10, man, it usually comes forth that someone right? And so how that partnership works, what does that look like? How does what value do they bring, but does both person bring to the relationship? And, the world is taking that from a financial sense, right? The contractual stuff. But it's so much more. It's the spiritual. It's the home life. My wife has been. We've had the blessing of her being able to stay at home. It wasn't by choice of either of us, but everything just kind of ended up like that. And so we have to know it was God. But now it's going on. Zach is 17, so it's going on 17 years that she's been at home. And I think we went through some stuff, and we're probably getting down to some of the other stuff questions, right? So there were some times too, though, because of that I wasn't great at recognizing the sacrifice she was making at being at home. Yep. And I didn't appreciate that sacrifice, right? And me and God had to have a lot of hard conversations, him talking to me, of challenging me, of how I was showing up and how I was treating this better half that I had, right? Yep. And to me having to acknowledge and recognize, hey, he's giving me this ability to go and have this professional career and do all this other stuff. But I would not be able to do any of this if it wasn't for her creating the home that she's created for us.
Right. Yeah, I think too often in marriage, and it's something that I'm, been learning on the fly, but marriage has been one of the biggest mirrors of self-reflection. Ooh, and you get to see a whole lot of yourself when you have a partner that's reflecting it back at you. And so you get to see the positive, and it's great, but you also have to sometimes stop and be like, hold on.
I don't like what I see.
Yeah, I don't like what I see. And I was like, what do you mean when you said I said something that hurt your feelings? I was like, okay, I got it now. And so being able to understand just kind of that functionality or that mirror that's right in front of there, and it's humbling in a lot of experiences. It's very, very humbling, and it's probably, I would say that marriage is probably, next to parenthood, is probably one of the most challenging but rewarding things out there. Like, it's the hardest job I've had, but it's one of the most.
It is one of the most
wonderful
rewarding jobs.
Yeah,
I say that from the pulpit oftentimes, and I think our focus scripture here. It talks about that, man. It comes to talk about leaving their mother and father, right, and cleaving to their wife and becoming one flesh. I don't know that we always embrace and understand what one flesh, the importance of that one flesh, right? Because so many times we want to come in and you want to stay an individual. Now, I'm not telling you lose your identity in marriage. But I am telling you become a different identity in me.
You really do. There are pieces of you. There are pieces of you that can't stay. You can't stay the same. They can't stay the same. You can't be a single person in a marriage. It doesn't work.
Because if we do that, then and if all of me stays the same, how did two become one then?
Exactly.
Then two became two. That's not what the Bible says.
Right.
And so essentially what he is telling me, just very much like in our salvation, right? Remember, this covenant reflects so much of our relationship with Christ as well.
Right.
And so just as we do, as it says, our old flesh, we die to our old flesh, and those things become new. Those two, look, all of you, your identity, who you are, Prentice Gilbert didn't die. But the new identity of who Prentice and Veronica Gilbert is, because he not only killed some things, but he brought some stuff that he had deposited, but it couldn't come forth until it connected with what brought it forth out of me. Right. So there are some things about me that didn't come up until he connected me to Veronica. Yeah. And now those things start to shine up. And so when they start shining, man, everything else, there is some stuff that naturally I want to die. Because I want to become that best version now of what he's created me to be in doing that.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's such a powerful statement. And in keeping with, like, the two become one, I am talking about, like, marriage as an identity. Like, you don't lose yourself. Like, you don't lose yourself entirely, but you do lose those pieces that don't need to be there. Like, God starts cutting away those pieces. Like, you can't be this way. And even thinking about, you brought up, saying that your wife is not an indentured servant. Like, she's the better half of you. She's somebody that you bring in with counsel, and she's made it possible for you to have the ability to do the things that you need to do. And so I always think about this quote, and it, like, put a lot of perspective in for me. Dr. Tony Evans says, like, men and women are equal in status, but not equal in function, and that applies in marriage. And I was like, He was like, everybody has their part to play, and if somebody is playing a different role, because me and my wife joke about this, is like, I'm like, okay, if you hear something go bump in the night, something crash in the night, I was like, who's gonna get? Yeah, she's like, that's you. I was like, no, I want to stay in bed and roll over. And she's like, no, I'm too cute for that. I was like, okay, so, but
baby, you getting the strap? I'm sorry, were you supposed to say that? Don't worry about it.
I was like, yeah, we're getting alternative things. We're finding alternative tools to handle the job. But that's my job. But when it comes to, like, okay, our baby girl, of course we both share in the parenting stuff. But I'm like, okay, I don't know all these colors. I don't know what dress looks cute on her.
Listen, I'm gonna pick something.
I'm gonna pick something, and it's gonna be clean. It's gonna be ironed. It's gonna be on her. But she might be in purple and red today. I'm just warning you.
And Corbin, I think you bring up something very important too, man. And so anytime me and my wife, we don't counsel nobody. I've performed several ceremonies, and I don't do counseling before because I don't have any degrees or none of that stuff in it. Come grab anybody that, like, say, any ceremony I perform, I'm like, hey, come up and let's go grab dinner, and we'll talk, because for us, every marriage is different, right? And that's expected. You have two different people, right? If you have multiple children, you recognize you love all of your children, but you love all of your children differently because they are different people. So marriage is the same way. You got different people, different backgrounds that bring in different things, different positives, different negatives, different baggages, and all that stuff. And so we'll sit down with couples and just kind of talk through some of the things that's hadn't worked for us. I don't give you advice. I'll tell you what worked for us and what hasn't worked, and tell you the pitfalls that we fell into. But that starts to create that piece there for us is, hey, how does your marriage work? And I think couples, one, it's good to surround yourself with like-minded people.
Yes, please do that. Like, please don't be the married couple hanging around divorced
all the
people,
single friends and all the divorce, people that's just miserable, man. Like, y'all mad all the time. No, I don't want to go grab dinner with y'all. I'm good. You know what I'm saying? So luckily for us, we started our life together in Montgomery at our home church there, and we had an amazing group of friends there that first 4 to 5 years of our marriage that we were able to be surrounded by. And we're all going in very similar fashions, and that really helped us build it. One, helped us recognize the differences and how other people navigate themselves through that. But it also helped us recognize some of those differences and start to work our way through that. And so what our marriage has looked like has been kind of different than other people. So for us, like I said, mowing the grass, that's a me, out the gate, right? My wife stays at home. And so typically, most times, Monday through Thursday-ish, she gonna take care of dinner, kind of whatever it is. Only two things I kind of don't like. I don't like sandwiches, too tough. I'll eat them, but it's not my forte. And my family loves breakfast for dinner. So if dad's out of town for work, they have breakfast for dinner. But other than that, so she kind of takes care of that. But we both love to cook. So Saturday and Sunday, I'm up, I cook breakfast. Sunday morning, I do all of it, breakfast. She just kind of got to get a chance to get her eat, and that's it. But so finding your rhythm, finding what works for you. But when you surround yourself with people going in a similar fashion, it helps you do some of that. And doing it.
Well, you walked all up in our second question, which was, what are some helpful tips to kind of having a successful marriage? And I love that you're like, hey, we each can do our own thing, and we balance things out. And your wife has her interest, you got your interest, and y'all are still able to pursue those. And of course life gets in the way, but you're
we got
still
kids.
able to be.
I can't wait till they get off my payroll, so we can kind of have our life back. This is.
I hate to tell you, they stay there for a long time.
I got all boys. I done told them, man, they got some ultimatums in there. But no, you're right. They don't ever really leave. But like this is the time of year my wife hates, man. It's football season, so my wife knows if we ain't got nothing committed to do on Saturday. For most Saturdays, like, nah, I'm downstairs. And, we get in from church on Sunday. If we ain't got nothing committed to do, my preference is to be downstairs. Now, if the second half slate really sucks, I'll go up and be like, hey, baby, you want to do something? Yeah, you want to watch that show, finish off that movie or whatever. But I will say this. I am cognitive of being intentional even during this season, right, of ensuring we make time for each other. And so one of those tips or whatever you would say is you have to be intentional about marriage, though, too, right? Continuously, right? Some old folks used to say, what it took to get her, it take to keep her, or whatever. Continuously date her. Yeah. Hey, so I sometimes have flexibility to work from home on Fridays. Hey, we'll grab breakfast on Friday mornings, right? Or we'll grab lunch on those Fridays. So we got our date night. Yeah. We just purchased the tickets to the Tivoli Theater. We bought a season pass this year. I was like, hey, this is built-in date nights for us. This is what we're gonna go do. And there's a couple shows we may buy some for the kids, but this is our time. Yeah. And so I'm very intentional about making time for us. And so in our marriage, and I'll say this nevertheless true too, be very careful at the positioning you place your children in your marriage. Yeah. Children have never, ever, 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 ever been intended to be in the 1 or 2 spot. Never. One has to be God. 2 has to be your spouse.
I need my
child.
I
don't care that you birthed them. I don't care none of that stuff.
Like, I've heard that a lot.
They take up a lot of our time.
They do.
But their positioning and priority should never be in the 1 or 2 spot.
Right.
It doesn't biblically align.
No. I look at that almost like, whenever you get on the airlines or any airplane, the first thing they tell you is put your mask on first. Yeah. And it works that way in marriage. If I spend all the time, and I mean, me and my wife adore our children, but it's like if we pour everything into y'all and never put anything back in ourselves, then we're not being effective for y'all.
Man.
So, that intentionality piece is a key tip, but it is, of course, a challenge. And but
life be life.
Yeah, life be life. But to be intentional is always a challenge in anything because you have to dedicate time, energy, resources, all of that stuff to it. So, but yeah, the intentionality part is definitely there for whatever the cadence is, for whatever, y'all have your theater and go into, the season pass, whatever it is, like we try to like just get away for a little bit. Whenever I'm like, Ma, you
good? You free?
How was your weekend this weekend? We were wondering if you didn't have anything to do.
Man, listen. I ain't gonna say that. I was gonna tell y'all. This is a joke. I understand. Don't have 3 kids. People will help you with 1. People will help you with 2. Man, when you get that 3rd one, people don't want to take care of 3 kids. No, you can't drop all 3. But seriously, to your point, man, we used to, we'd always. My mom was open to her parents as well. And so, again, for our cadence, typically I try to do 1 to 2 vacations a year, okay? Usually one of those is big, whatever big is for you, and one usually may be a road trip or something like that. And for the last 10 to 15 years, especially as our boys got older, the cadence I tried to keep ourselves in for most times is out of those 1 to 2 trips a year, one of those was just me and her.
Yeah.
And we alternated the big or the small, right? And so my boys have had a whole lot of heartache some days that y'all going well. Last year we went to Cali. I was in Cali for a work trip, and so I was like, hey, it was around her birthday. I said, babe, you want to go to Cali with me? She was like, okay. Her parents came up and stayed with our boys. We went to Disneyland. My boys have never been to Disneyland.
Came back with the
man, was they mad? Like, brother, I ain't even wait. We were sending pictures back. I'm like, we on the ride, man. I mean, like, so, but it's been very intentional, man. And we create some kind of cadence. And so we've went a couple of years now. I was like, hey, we ain't had no just us trip in a while. I'm getting kind of antsy. And so I'm looking out, but I got one for to graduate next year. And so it may be a challenge here in the next year or two. So again, don't get so hard up on that either.
Yeah.
You'll be flexible in life like that.
Yeah.
But it's important.
Flexibility is important too, because like I can say, at least for my marriage, because me and my wife are both in like pretty demanding careers. So it's like, okay, we have to figure out like where we can, what works, what kind of goes in there. And like you said, every couple is different. You have some couples that may have, all the time in the world and they're able to do those things. And then you have other couples that, ships passing in the night, but they still got to be, intentional about what they do. And so it's that intentionality piece, I think, is a really, really good piece. What other tips would you suggest?
And so, of course, the canned answer always is communication, right? What does communication look like for you guys, right? And so me and my wife are both, whether you believe in horoscopes, and I don't believe in horoscopes, but I think there is a little bit toward kind of when you're born and kind of the DNA of who you are. So we're both Tauruses, all right? That means I'm very stubborn. So we are very, but we're also very passionate, right? And so over time for us, communication, by grace and our growing in our faith too, it has matured and evolved over time. The Bible says in some frame, and people always say, kind of never go to bed angry, never let the sun go down on your wrath, kind of however you take it. Hey, I'm gonna be honest, man. Those first 5-10 years, that didn't work for us. Man, listen, if we gonna try to hash this out, this finna blow up.
It's like sometimes
let's go to sleep.
Let's get it out.
Now, I ain't never slept on the couch. But there's been a whole lot of nights she slept towards one wall and I slept towards the other. Yeah, I bought a king size bed to ensure we good. But as we've grown, both of us, I thank God so much how praying for her and then prayers on myself, how we have matured over years. That I'll tell you, arguments don't linger like they used to, right? They used to go, hey, bro, I'm a Taurus. They could go 2, 3, 4 man. We can stretch this thing out to a week or two if we need to. But now, man, we'll blow up or something, and 20 minutes, 30 minutes come on. You gonna watch TV or not? Then we watch TV. Okay, well, bet this passed, all right. And so communication, kind of what that looks like for you, but find the cadence that makes both of you comfortable, and never quit working on that.
Oh yeah.
If we would have gave up and resigned each other to who we're going to be for the rest of our marriage 10 years ago, I don't know that we would have been here, right? And man, I want to tell you this too, and if you go into it with this in mind, I think it helps a lot of people. It is a marathon. It is not a singular race. This is not a sprint. It's a marathon, man. And so the things and even in a marathon, you're right, you don't have the same speed through the whole 26 miles, right? And how you train and all that stuff dictates how you approach that race. Whether you decide that you're going to come out with a higher speed and you drop off, or you choose to walk slower so that you can pick whatever that is, you got to figure that out as the athlete in this marriage too. It's kind of what works for us and how that looks. And so I think we've done that well. So the things that we were able to overcome over the last 19 years still sets me up to my 55 is the thing to my boys. I need everybody, me to look at, just in case my boys watch this podcast, I need everybody off my payroll by the time I get 55. Because I am so looking forward to what our life looks like on the other side of that. And then at some point becoming grandpa. Like I'm excited about what life looks like, man.
Oh, yeah.
I'm excited about. I don't have to have a cadence of little trip, big trip. Man, we'll do 15 big trips. You know what I'm saying in a year, in a little bit, man. But
wake up at 11:30 and get your day started. I'm looking forward to them days.
I had to be in this marathon and not in the sprint to get there. To being able to do that.
Right. Yeah. That marathon mentality, that endurance that kind of comes in there, like that. It's a great tip and it's challenging. And speaking further to like the communication piece, I think keeping the line of communication is good, and also knowing how to communicate. Something that I had like early on was like, it's not what you're saying. It's how you saying it. I was like, what did I say? I was like, I said it the way that I would have had it communicated to me, and I was like, that's the problem. I was like, Is it? But,
Why is that a problem?
Why is that a problem? I was like, this is the way I've always said it. But
and then that way coming. So you trying to change me? That's that contentious stuff that starts to boil up, man.
And you have to learn to deal with that. Something that, and I know it's kind of cliche, but everybody's kind of gone through it. But like 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman, that actually was a big help to me because it was like, okay, I'm completely an acts of service person. Like I may not say something to you, and I may be the person that would be like, "You want anything from the store?"
Yeah,
like, we might have had a bad argument, or like, I'm going to the store.
I'm a gifts person. I show my love by my gifts.
I'm like, hey, I made dinner. I cut the grass. It was like, I get points, right? I get points.
I went on and did that HBO Max subscription. You had talked about the other day. I did, and it's on the TV if you want it.
Password is that. But my wife is more of like a quality time and physical touch type of person. So it's like, okay, that's a different way of communication for me. It's a different way to speak. A love language for me. So I have to, acquiesce and be like, hey, let me step into an area that I may not be comfortable with, because I'm like, I am not a like touchy-feely person.
Yeah.
Like, I've never been the type to be like,
holding hands.
I'm like, I'm not that person. She is, and I'm like, so every now and then I have to be like, okay, let me do this. All right, that was my 5 minutes. Let's.
and hey, life changed some of that, man. You may be a cuddler early on, and then as some of the factions of life started happening, y'all get hot in bed. Like, hey, you mind sliding over to your side?
Just move to your side. Move your side.
Can we get some air here or something? But you know what? To that perseverance, man, and a verse that, if I'm not mistaken, it actually was on our wedding, because it's on a lot of people's, but I think it was on our wedding program, was that 1 Corinthians 13, right? Love love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. That perseverance, man, embodying that 1 Corinthians 13 becomes a challenge, right? And you talked earlier about that mirror to you. It'll really show you, man, and it'll be a mirror and a gauge where you thought you was, how fast you thought you could run, how long you thought you could run. It started to really challenge you in those efforts to doing that. And I'd also want to add this last one too for me, and I think that's grace. All right, we've talked about communication, we talked about perseverance, but I think that grace. And Ephesians 4:32 says, "Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other, just as in Christ God forgave you." The ability to see my wife through Christ's eyes allows us to keep fighting, allows us to keep running. I talk about surrounding yourselves with great people. One of those sets of people in my life is really great friends of ours from our time in Augusta, Georgia. Dr. Mike and Wendy Perry. They have an amazing book out there that talks about some of the elements of marriage. They speak a lot, and on they're part of a couple of larger known organizations about marriage workshops and stuff like that. And in that book, Wendy talked about a very pivotal time in their marriage, where it was kind of that crossroads, right? And it was significant. And she verbalized something that hit home so hard for me, and that's kind of carried me for a long time. And she said it was in one of those very heated moments. She looked at Mike and she said, "You better be lucky I love God more than I love you." And so when I talk about the priority, your kids can never be in the 1 or 2 spot. Likewise, your spouse can never be in the number 1 spot. Because the time when they do something you don't like or that really hurts or destroys you, if they're in the number 1 spot, it's going to be hard for you to overcome that, right? When God is in the number 1 spot. So there are days, my wife says this all the time, there are days, we love each other every day, but there are days we don't like each other. And so because I love God more than I love her, and he commands me on how I treat her. He commands me on how I love her. He commands me on how I show up for her. Because I love God more than I love her. That grace that I extend and she extends to me as well. Because I'm gonna say some stupid stuff. I'm gonna make some mistakes, right? I said when, early in our marriage, when she first started staying at home, I didn't handle that situation in the best way. And so knowing she loved God more than she loved me, I think allowed us to continue to push through those things, and having our relationship be rooted in Christ first, I think helped us a whole lot in how we continue to move forward.
Yeah. And so these are all like some great tips and things. I'm gonna move us to our next question, which is
Okay.
a controversial one because it depends on who you ask. But from
This the question you trying to get me kicked out of church.
You know,
go ahead on.
We'll invite you back.
Yeah.
We'll invite you back
as a guest speaker on Youth Day.
But look, you got the jokes. I'm here for it. I am here for it. So, does the Bible approve or disapprove of divorce? Why not?
Hey, so first of all, the question is very loaded and how it's even worded for us, right? Does the Bible approve or disapprove of divorce? Not gonna catch me up on that. All right. Was it in God's biblical plan for divorce? No, it was not in God's biblical plan for divorce. It was in God's commandment of thou shalt, how will, yea, so verily you shall do, right? Marriage was intended to be a consistent, present, always in thing. There is a difference between command and concession. There are elements in the Bible where God granted concession that gave pathways that people were able to come out of marriage based on some very finite things, right? Around those. But I'll preface that by saying a couple of things. One, God never intended anybody to be mistreated and beat on, hit on, all that type of stuff. So I don't care what you believe. God never intended for me to be hit on, beat on, mistreated, abused, and none of that type of stuff. So if anybody's listening to us and you find yourself in a situation of that, do not let the church or anything else inside of you allow you to stay in a place where you are being consistently abused, mistreated.
Them situations
Now,
get help.
I didn't say where you don't like them all the time, right? Again, going back to what the world has determined as, how I feel, my self-care and all that, some of that. But so I'm talking about physically. If you're being harmed, abused, stuff, they never intended for that. But here's the second piece, Corbin. I thought about this one and I prayed about. I want to say though, we as the church and as believers, we try to make this conversation a very black and white conversation. Black and white is very Old Testament. Old Testament was very black and white. This is the rules, thou shalt, here's what you do every time with every situation, no matter what, even down to the point of the parable of the two women bringing the child, and you know what I'm saying? All those fables and stuff, or whether we cut them in half or what the king have you do. Very black and white as to how we handle situations. The amazing piece about what the New Testament brought to the Bible was God brought grace. And so now this grace that we live up under starts to create a lot of nuance within this, right? And the perfect example to me is when they brought the woman who was caught in adultery to Jesus. Right. For the people that want to have this very black and white argument of whether God in the Bible approves of divorce, those were the same people in the crowd that tried to trip Jesus up. That said, hold on now. You said, here's what the Old Testament said about this woman right here. And what we found, this woman, because they ain't bring the man, because last time I remember, it takes two things to do some adultery, but whatever. Maybe they had a different kind back then. But they brought her in, right? And so by the same frame, the churches will want to do a very similar fashion, right? In bringing people forth and all that stuff. And so the thing I'll say about this question and challenge us as a church, a body of believers is, are we emulating the love of Christ in the love and the spirit of the law and the rule? Or are we going by the letter of the law? Right. Because I think the grace that Christ extended that day, first in trying to ignore them and trying to give them opportunity to change themselves, when they declined to do that, then he called them out on all the stuff they showed up with that they wasn't calling out, that they didn't want to talk about, right? And so I approach our church, the church body and believers, when you talk about that, you talk about how we want to treat divorce or people that have that has occurred in our church. We have depending upon the situation, we pick and choose what parts of the word, what parts of the black and white law that we want to highlight, and what things we want to let slide up under the rug, right?
Right.
Because you can go, you can throw somebody on the bus if they got a divorce, but you let Joe Blow and Deacon Wetzel, drink it up every weekend, getting slizzard. We ain't gonna talk nothing about that. Or he got 2-3 girlfriends. You pick the thing.
Yeah. I mean, all sin is sin.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
And God doesn't approve of any sin.
Nope.
So we can
The approval word is no.
Yeah. So I didn't mean to trip up on the question, but
the grace that abounds though to us all, I think is the product of what we need to live by. Right?
Yeah. And I think it's important that in context, like you said, like it can't just be pure black and white.
Nah.
I would never tell somebody who's in a marriage where they are being physically abused that like, oh, you should stay. I'm like, no, you should leave.
Yeah.
Like you should leave and be like go somewhere and be
Protect
safe.
yourself.
Yeah,
Yes,
protect
that's right.
yourself.
That's
Like
right.
nobody should be beating you or hurting you or abusing you or anything like that. So we gotta take things in context. And also at the same time, though, we can't, be on the other end of the extreme where it's just like, I don't like her today, so I'm out of love with you, so I'm leaving.
I had social media, man. I saw a video, and social media is the devil. I'm joking.
No, it is. It is. That ain't no joke. It is.
It is a heavily used tool by the devil. How about we say that?
We'll say that.
It is a heavily used tool by the devil. But I saw a young lady posted a video that said she woke up one day and recognized how she had outgrown her husband. And I said,
like, how you?
Whoa, let me think about that. You've outgrown your husband. What does that even mean, man? What does that even mean? Hey, back in the day, me and my in high school, me and my homeboys used to do karaoke but we didn't have a karaoke machine. We just used to sing because we was cutting up because we should have been working in class, but we wasn't. And one of our favorite songs that I led was Teddy Pendergrass, 50-50 Love, right? Hey, but let me contradict Teddy, right? Everything is not going to be 50-50 throughout marriage. No. There are some times when it's been 90-10. She's been having to put in 90 because I only had 10 to drag it to try to get through to the next day. Oh, yeah. And I'm grateful that she was willing to give 90 during those periods. There's been periods when I had 80 because all she had was 20. But it wasn't the reason for me to get out because, she ain't pulling her weight. Well, what is her weight today? Yeah. Every day's weight may be different, right?
It's a realistic expectations.
That's right.
Like, please stop watching all these romantic comedies and Disney Channel movies and stuff. Like, stop watching.
Follow all them folks with all them.
It is not happily ever after every day. It is.
They gave you the best clip that they had in their reel, man. That's not what life looked like every single day.
No.
And so Satan is using that tool, man, that comparison to destroy us in many, many ways.
Yeah. And I think, I say often, especially to my son, I'm like, look, comparison is the enemy of progress.
That's
like,
right.
if you are comparing your relationship to somebody else's, now, granted, like, there's things in your relationships that you should not do. Like, you should not be cheating. You should not be doing.
That's right.
Blah, blah, blah.
There are standards. Some hard truths in there.
Yeah, there are standards. But just because you went on and saw somebody post some pictures of a couple out in, Bali for their honeymoon doesn't mean that your relationship
at 27,
is bad.
you're like, oh man, I'm behind. No, you ain't.
It's like, no, and I was like,
they may be lying, or they in debt harder
Listen,
than you want to be.
That's what I keep trying to tell people. I was like, listen, social media is not real. Yeah, you saw this, 25-year-old couple say that they spent their honeymoon for 2 months in Japan, and I'm like, and I bet you they got $600,000 in debt, and and are probably living off of ramen. I was like, that is not real. What they give you this little picture, a 15-second video is not how life goes every day. Because some days are the absolute, it really is. Some days are the absolute best. You at your peak of the roller coaster, it's amazing. And then there's other days it's like, I just need to make it to tomorrow. And like you said, some days is you with the 80, is her with the 20. Some days it might actually be 50-50, but it is not 50-50 all the time.
Man.
Because life get in the way.
You think that's what it's supposed to be, man. Yeah. You probably ain't going to survive in this thing, if I'm being honest with you. You know what I'm saying? And so I think talking to people and being real, again, when I talk about surrounding yourselves with good people, it's people that's willing to tell you the hard stuff that happens in their life and the challenges that they face. Because we don't like to talk about the hard stuff and those challenges.
No.
And I think that's important too, to share. One thing that we created that's taboo in church now, and man, we kind of got to figure out a way to push through. And that's even our sex life, right? We don't want to talk about that. That's taboo. That's stuff we don't talk about in church. But then you start struggling, man, and you thinking y'all alone, you thinking she don't love you because of this or that. And because no one, my wife has mentioned this to me too, is like even for women, that people don't talk about the hormones and some of the changes that women go through. And so we don't talk about that as a couple because now we don't talk about how that impacts me.
Right.
And now how do I have, what positioning do we need to be in as she goes through those changes? And then even as I get older, right? And it don't, my chest ain't never been big like that. I ain't cut like bro Tony, pretty Tony, shout out to you. I ain't cut like that or whatever, but you know what I'm saying? But even those changes, right? They impact the marriage and all those other things.
Yeah, and I think it's definitely a conversation that we do need to bring the church into more when you start talking about intimacy and sex and things like that, because that is that's biblical too.
It is.
Like,
it is.
And so we put that over on the side, and we only want to talk
about.
This
is the other thing. No.
We only want to talk about that part of marriage when something goes bad.
That's right.
Like somebody stepped out, somebody cheated, somebody did whatever. But I'm like,
the only time we talk about sex.
Yeah, it's the only time we talk about it. But I'm like, the Bible talks about sex in more than one spot.
Yes.
and talks about...
It wasn't a perv. It's not porn, but it is talked about.
It has talked about it, but it talks about what a healthy sexual relationship should be and how that is a reflection of going back to Christ and how that goes into there. And so it has spiritual connotations in with that as well. But we don't talk about it enough in church. And I think it would be something that, particularly for younger people, if they knew kind of a little bit more ahead of time, they might do a little bit better, because it's hard being young.
It is.
It's hard being young. We've been young and know what's out there, and probably have done all of our own stuff too. But it's like understanding that sometimes you just didn't have the context. For nobody told me this. I only learned from what was already told to me. So, but
look, I know we're gonna wrap up, but I want to, because we threw that out there. I don't want to leave without putting a little hook in there for maybe something later. Hey, the impacts of porn and some of that stuff on our daily lives and on marriage right now. Yeah. Hey, I want you to understand something that the enemy has done with that type of the world for us. What it has done now is allowed you to bring some stuff into your bed or into your marriage. Some of you may have done, you may have found that Playboy book at 10 years old, 12, 15 or whatever, and now you started fantasizing all this other stuff. Now you have brought those things into your marriage. How? Because now I'm looking at her with these expectations and these visuals that I think is how you're supposed to perform. And what if that's not who she is? And it's not fair to her that you are thinking she should uphold something that you saw on the screen. That they did in 12 takes or whatever that was, or they got paid for, whatever that connotation was. Right. And that starts to create a burden and a heavy weight on our own marriages. And again, the stuff church won't talk about that.
Yeah. And it's conversations that we need to have, because it is a dangerous thing. And the danger of today's society is that, and I'm bringing social media back into the conversation, is that information now is so readily accessible. Yes. Things that are
good or bad.
Good or bad, but
true or inaccurate information.
Yeah, and it's really blurring the line between okay, what's real, what's not, what's what is this, what is that, the stuff that is accessible to people now, and children especially now, which is why I try to tell parents, I was like, don't give your kid a phone. Don't give them a phone.
My boys can't stand it. They didn't get it to 15, 16 years old.
And they are just fine. Right. The sun still rose the next day, and they are just
People
fine.
talk about how well read and educated and how well they'll hold a conversation because they have a phone.
I wonder why. They
didn't have no phone.
Yeah, but learning those things and being protective of your children, not being helicopters, but being protective and making sure that they're not exposed prematurely to stuff that could ruin them, and the other pieces on that. Yep. So with some of the time that we have left, this is usually the part of the show where, as we start to close down, we never want to end an episode without giving somebody the chance to meet Jesus. Okay. So we never want to miss an opportunity for somebody to know Jesus, because that is the whole point of what we do. And typically I would lead us in just a short prayer and just inviting people into Christ. But I'm going to ask, would you be willing to give just a short prayer today, just inviting anybody who may be listening to this, the opportunity to know Jesus?
I absolutely would, man. Hey, before I pray, I'd say this. It doesn't matter what challenges, struggles, issues you've been at. It doesn't matter how lowly you've been in your life. God knew and was present then and is present now. And his desire has always been to have a committed, loving relationship with you. And so with that being said, I'd like to extend this opportunity for you to accept his love willingly that he freely gave to you. Gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for just being God. We pray right now, God, for anyone that's listening, for them to have the desire to give their life over to you. And so, God, if they will repeat after me, I know that you are willing and desire to bring them into the body. If they would say, I confess today that I am a sinner and I am in need of a Savior. God, come into my life, renew me and make me whole, and save me from my sins. Forgive me. And I desire to follow and live a life after you. If you prayed that prayer for the first time, God is excited today to have you be a part of the kingdom. And he desires to show you love like you've never seen before.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that prayer. And amen. Like, if you were praying along with us, and you are wanting to give your life to Christ, we would love to walk with you on this journey. So you can head to orchardknob.org and click the I'm New button, and we can connect with you. We'll have someone reach out to you and continue to walk you through the next steps in salvation. If you're already plugged into a local church, keep growing. If you're looking for a church, come visit us at Orchard Knob Baptist Church here at 1734 East 3rd Street. We are having service at 9:30 a.m. Wednesday night Bible study starts at 5:30. Yes, we do feed. Youth and adults are welcome. And with all of that, guys, we just want to thank you for joining us on this episode of The Grove. Catch us on orchardknob.org, YouTube, Amazon Music, Spotify, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Remember, be bold, bear fruit, tell somebody about Jesus, and thanks for hanging with us, and we'll see you next time on The Grove.